Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. I hope welcoming back for another episode, rip-roaring episode of Mondays with Mundy, and that's me, Jim Mundy, the Union League Legacy Foundation historian at the Union League of Philadelphia. We've been doing these since late March, early April, and we're getting some good feedback, so hopefully everybody's enjoying these programs. So today, if you're watching, and this is Monday, September the 7th, an important day in Union League history, at least from the building's perspective, because the most serious catastrophe to the building occurred that day. It was a fire. Took off the whole third floor. So what happened, how did it happen, and what were the results? So what was going on 154 years ago in Philadelphia in the fall of 1866? Well, there was a congressional election. And it was as if the Civil War hadn't been fought, that it hadn't ended, that the 15th Amendment had never been passed. It was as if nothing had really changed. It was just bitter, emotional infighting between the North and the South, right? Not dissimilar to what we're seeing today, if that gives you some idea about the emotional level of what was going on in 1866. President Andrew Johnson had just been to Philadelphia on August the 28th, where he made a comment that he would abide no leagues outside the Constitution, which was a slap at the Union League, which he considered a group of radicals who were trying to subvert the Constitution, and basically means that they were trying to get rid of him. Shortly after that, between September the 3rd and the 7th, there was a convention that took place of Southern loyalists. That is, these were Southerners who remained loyal to the Union during the Civil War itself. And you can imagine how rough that must have been. So, and it goes without saying that these loyalists were supported by the Union League at their convention when they were here in Philadelphia. And actually, the League House was open to them for meetings, receptions, and things like that. So, on the nights of September the 5th and 6th, there were parades down Broad Street in front of the League House. First with the Boys in Blue. There were 800 Union veterans who marched in front of the League House to basically demonstrate their support for what the League had done during the Civil War. And then the night after, there were, thousands and thousands of convention delegates, Northern delegates, supporters of the Southern delegates, and Philadelphians who were there to acknowledge the role the League played during the Civil War and bringing it to a pro-Union and Northern solution and outcome. So September the 6th, the city's quieting down, but at 12:40 in the morning, on the morning of September the 7th, a fire broke out on the third floor laundry room closet, and it spread incredibly fast, even though the fire alarms were sounded and a number of hose and engine companies showed up. It didn't take more. It took about an hour and a half before the fire companies actually had the fire under control, as they would say. So a little after 2 o'clock in the morning. But in the meantime, the third floor was lost. And again, it was a wooden frame structure at this point in time, right? So what was on the third floor? There was the steward's apartment, and the steward was the 19th century version of the general manager. So he lived there with his family. Mr. Froman was his name. There were servant dormitories as well. The laundry was up there. We don't know how big it was or what it included, but it was up there. And there was also a records storage room where the League kept many of its Civil War records, documents, newspapers, Civil War trophies, some flags apparently, but also importantly, its copy of the Emancipation Proclamation that was given to the League at the 1864 Great Central Fair. And of course, it was the League that was responsible for printing those copies and having them sold at the fair. Also lost, we believe, were the League's blueprints for the Broad Street building, done by John Fraser and opened in May of 1865, because we don't have them to this day. So, also, what was also on the third floor, at least in the front of the building, there is a cupola, if you will, and out of that cupola rises a flag pole, and on that flagpole was an immensely oversized American flag, and on that, attached to that flagpole were other types of flags and banners and things like that. So as the fire was raging, some Philadelphia fighters actually went to the cupola from the outside and rescued the flag, flung it to the ground where it was saved, and then rehung the day after. Right. So firefighters. There were 7 of them who were later acknowledged in the papers as having been the most bravest, if you will. And it was these gentlemen that the League rewarded with financial rewards. So, and I actually have their names. We know who they were. They were Michael Blunden from the Franklin Engine Company, S.P. Cunningham, Charles Dara, and George Nelson from the Franklin Hose Company, Thomas Roberts and James Powers from the Fairmount Engine Company, and James Winters from the Philadelphia Engine Company. And so all these men received cash rewards for their bravery in helping put out that fire. So this fire made national news because the Union League was still making national news. I mean, literally, papers from Maine to California had access to the newswire services, which existed back then. Think of the AP today, if you will, or Reuters and stuff like that. Well, they had their versions back in 1866. And so this news was everywhere, as I said, across the entire country. So everybody knew about it. It was that big a fire, right? So the building, of course, was insured. The league had $120,000 worth of insurance on it, $60,000 for the building, $60,000 for contents, and it was estimated within a day or two that there were $40,000 in damages, $25,000 building, $15,000 contents. A lot of the contents were saved below the third floor because many members and onlookers created a chain where they were in the building and took out paintings and furniture and things like that. So a lot of valuable things were saved that way. So hence maybe only the smaller figure in contents. But the league decided to take this opportunity to improve the building at the same time because obviously there was no firewall on the third floor at this point. The league would build firewalls going all the way, that is brick walls, interior brick walls that go all the way through the building, the third floor, and into the roof itself. And if you go up on the roof today, you can still see the tops of those walls capped in lead. Pretty neat. All right, the league also used the opportunity to support other parts of the clubhouse as well that were deemed to be a little weak. It improved the laundry room on the third floor, and it also improved the servants' dormitories, which was a good thing because during the fire, the servants, I mean, they're very humble people, hardly wealthy by any stretch of the, I mean, they were hardworking people and not necessarily believers in banks because apparently one servant, and again, this is what they were called in the 19th century. So one servant lost $400 in cash in his locker or foot locker. Another servant lost $350 in cash. So hopefully making these improvements made it a little safer for servants to work there and keep their money in their foot lockers. So anyway, so that's what happened. So did they ever find out the cause of the fire? No, not really. It was thought to be arson. Again, given President Johnson's words that I want no leagues outside the Constitution, maybe it was thought that a supporter of Johnson's took him seriously and literally and started the fire, but there's no evidence of that. They thought at one point that maybe a gas pipe had been broken on the third floor, I mean intentionally, but there was no evidence of that, even though the janitor, when he exited the building after the fire was discovered, was arrested, but later released. So to this day, we don't know what happened and what caused the fire. So anyway, so that's that. So I'm going to, so a very important day in Union League history. All right. So let's go to a PowerPoint and I can show you some images from that time period, which I think are kind of fun. And all right, guys, I need you to go up. All right, come on. Here we go. I hit slideshow. I hit it twice. We go from the beginning. All right, we've got it. Okay. So this is the parade of Southern Loyalists. And you can see how the building was decorated on the front here. Let's see what I can do here. Okay, I can't do that after all. All right, so here's the front cupola. All right, you can see the words Washington. Those were done in gas flames, by the way. So you have Washington in the center cupola underneath the July 1776. Left-hand corner of the building, you can see Lincoln. Right-hand corner, Geary. That's for John White Geary, who was a Republican candidate for governor of Pennsylvania in that fall's election. Again, you can see just the cheering crowds that were gathering in front of the Broad Street building. A little bit of Philadelphia history, though. To the right of the League House itself, on the very corner of Broad and Sansom, was the Academy of Natural Sciences. And if you look to the right of that, that was the La Pierre Hotel, one of the most luxurious hotels in the city and the country at that point in time. Right, and this was the parade of the boys in blue. Right, you can see some of them are soldiers in there. And they're talking about, and you can see a banner that says Boys in Blue even and stuff like that. And again, just look at the flagpole. You get a really good idea what it looked like with the American flag and how oversized it was. Look at all the other flags and things straight from the clubhouse itself. So that's what the building looked like before, and this is what the building looked like during. Pretty neat stuff, all right? So you can still see the Washington, Lincoln, and Geary signs in the building. You can see the firefighters on the top floor. There is a balustrade that surrounds the entire third floor, and you can actually see one firefighter who's already climbed the cupola, is at the very base of the flagpole himself, saving the flag. Of course, we don't know the name of that specific firefighter, but we know the 7 who helped the most. And you can see them around the left-hand side by the tower. And you can see the engine companies, the hose companies, just throwing water up to the top of the third floor itself. And actually, there's that fire. There we go. You can see the firefighter taking down the flag. You can see some more firefighters on the left-hand side coming along to help, right? And this is what the colorized version looks like. Isn't that neat? It really is. And these were, this image is from a Harper's Weekly newspaper of September the 22nd of 1866. So really, really wonderful stuff from the 19th century. So, all right. So that's that. And then the Goodwill Fire Company, which was also a participant in putting out the blaze, in 1866 created a certificate for its membership certificate for the members of its fire company. In the lower left-hand corner, you can see they illustrated the League Clubhouse on fire. So the fire was very famous in Philadelphia. All right, so what do we have today? There are still remnants of the burnt timbers on the third floor of the clubhouse itself. Isn't that neat? So again, this is under the cupola on the Broad Street side, but inside the building, not outside. You can see on the left-hand image how they took a new joist and sistered it on the left-hand side alongside the burnt joist. And you can see the wood timbering that was also charred during the fire as well. And if you look on the right-hand side, again, you'll see, again, they sistered the joist together, new timbers with old timbers and stuff like that. So, and what do we got here? All right, another just a closer look at what we had on the previous slide, but on the right-hand side, just take a look at that charred wood. And what's really interesting is that when you go up to the third floor, which you can do, and we often do with back of the house tours for those members who haven't taken one yet, and you see it advertised in the banner, jump on it, because we go to the third floor and we show you this specific spot where you can see these timbers. You can still smell the fire on the third floor, which is really neat. So there you go, September 7th, 1866 to September the 7th of 2020, 154 years ago, the most disastrous fire in the League history occurred. So I hope you found that interesting. And next week we have something equally interesting, but in a little lighter air, perhaps. Nonetheless, a League member will come to the rescue of the Princess Eugenie as she, before the angry mob would envelop the royal palace in Paris during the Franco-Prussian War of 1870-71. So stay tuned for that one. It'll be a lot of fun. And in the meantime, thank you once again for joining us, and thank you Union League Legacy Foundation for sponsoring these videos. I hope you're enjoying them as much as I enjoy giving them. And it's still a little safe out, a little scary out there. So please, between now and next Monday, everybody, be careful, be safe, and stay well. So thank you for joining us. See you next week. Goodbye.